The one thing you'll never get from a narcissist is a sincere apology. So many of us continue to carry so much hurt, anger, and confusion because we don't understand why they just can't say sorry. We live in a malignant state of hope, wondering whether one day they will offer us some sort of acknowledgement of the pain that their actions caused. So if this issue is still causing you to lose sleep, then I hope that in this video I can offer you some further clarity and help you get some sort of closure so you can just move on from all of this unnecessary pain. What I'm talking about here is someone who has repeatedly and consistently demonstrated that they meet the criteria for a mental disorder that's based on pathological lying. So they're pretty much always lying or offering you a distortion of truth. And at best, you will only get an "I'm sorry" that sounds lazy with a tinge of irritation, annoyance, arrogance. It feels superficial, flat, and very insincere. A narcissist version of an apology is almost always followed by some sort of excuse. But to them, it's a justifiable reason. If you've been hurt by something that they said or they did, you will be expected to get over it on their time, which is right away. They'll demand to have the right to get defensive and call you too sensitive or over the top. They may even get upset, angry, or enraged because you've cornered them and implied that they aren't sorry. They may justify why they don't have to apologize to you or how ridiculous you are to even assume that they're not sincerely sorry. And this is all to dodge responsibility. They may blame you for their actions. So trying to get an apology out of someone who believes that they truly are infallible and faultless is virtually impossible. They are more likely to give you a list of reasons why they shouldn't apologize to you. Notice their inability to say sorry about the simplest of things, like repeatedly interrupting, or when they completely change the subject just as you were sharing something important. They seem to be completely unaware and unable to say, "Oh, I'm so sorry, I interrupted you. Please continue what you were saying." Yet these are the basic communication skills that show that you care and that you respect the other person. But I'm not just talking about wanting a sincere apology for being repeatedly disregarded or disrespected or lied to. Like that's not bad enough. Some of the most common things we repeatedly experience in these relationships that any reasonable person would want and deserve a sincere apology for include deplorable incidents like putting our lives in danger, risking the lives of our children, putting the family's finances in jeopardy, recurring infidelities, and other seemingly simple things like withholding crucial information and keeping secrets. And those narcissists who veer into the spectrum of psychopathy or antisocial personality disorder, they completely lack a moral compass, do not feel any remorse whatsoever, and are capable of anything. So expecting an apology from these types is like expecting blood from a stone. And studies even confirm that brain scans on these type of individuals, the area in the brain that lights up when we feel empathy, that does not happen in the brains of these individuals who are true psychopaths. Apparently, they aren't wired to feel any guilt, so they cannot feel sorry. All they can do is pretend to give you an apology. Saying sorry means we recognize that we did something wrong and perhaps we made a mistake. And please hear me when I emphasize this point. The critical definitive factor of this psychopathology is that these people feel no remorse. They have a general empathy deficiency, which means they feel no guilt. So if you can't recognize that you've done something wrong, how can you be sorry? When they get defensive or they attack you, it's no longer about you or you having an actual legitimate reason for feeling hurt and needing an apology. It's about them defending their superiority complex and their assumption that they are godlike. Apparently, you should know this. They are above those petty, whiny conversations. They don't have to apologize. Another reason why a pathological narcissist or psychopath will never say sorry is because for it to be a genuine, heartfelt apology, it would mean that they would need to have empathy, consideration for you. But they don't. The only thing that they're likely to be very sorry about is that they got caught doing something wrong that upset you. Never be fooled by a narcissist apology. They only act accountable. If you accept their apology, it still means that the relationship is still on their terms. And it also means that you owe them forgiveness. If they're actually apologizing, it means that they want something from you. It's a strategic plan, and it's part of the cycle of abuse. An apology creates an illusion of being good, and when we accept their shallow apology, they know they've hooked us back into that malignant state of hope. We feel better, we let our guard down, this causes us to trust, and we bond over this particular experience. And you'll recognize that all of this is part of trauma bonding. If you threaten to leave because they won't take responsibility or they won't apologize for something that is significantly important to you, like destroying your trust, if you are a primary source of supply, they will do the most convincing act of suddenly being accountable. They will put on a spectacular show to get you back, but their apology only serves them. They need to retain their source of supply until at least they have a secondary source. Once things have calmed down, and that usually lasts a few days or a week, the narcissist will revert back to exactly who they were before. But now they'll seek their revenge. They will punish you, and they'll never forget that you threatened to leave them. It is an insult because they see themselves as the best thing that's ever happened to you, and they get very defensive about their grandiose false self. So this is another way in which a narcissist will strategically use apology. Creating the illusion of being sorry could be important, especially if they are in the public eye or they have an image to uphold in the community. So their image doesn't become tainted or people stop believing in all their saint-like illusions. So in those circumstances, it'll only then become really important for them to convince you that they are sorry. It's to preserve their reputation. And if you're the only one in the family or at a workplace who doesn't quite buy into what they're selling, they actually don't care. All they care about is that they still have their group of yes people whose faith and trust has been reassured by their fake and usually very dramatic, but yet somewhat awkward exhibit of an apology, which is more for show rather than actually a demonstration of their sincerity. And they use this as a great opportunity to redirect their focus back to them and to affirm to all their fans that they are such a kind and apologetic person. This is a fake remorse. They will hide this toxic behavior with their appearance of humility. But it actually goes against their belief, which is that they will not submit to anyone. And this is the basis of this mental pathology. Point blank, they believe that they are superior. Unfortunately, narcissists value their ego more than the relationship. A narcissist sees an apology as asking them to be beneath you. That's why they make such a huge drama and act offended. Because in their mind, you're asking them to be on the same level as you. Walking in your shoes and being empathetic is offensive to them. That's why, at best, they can only pretend to be sorry. A sincere apology is usually followed up with making amends. Basically, what that means is that there is a wanting to make things right. And it's simple to understand and actually do for those who have empathy and feel compassion for others when we've hurt them. It's when we take actions on our words. It's when our "I'm sorry" is followed by careful consideration of another person's requests, so we don't repeat the same thing we've said or we've done that we know could hurt them. Generally, most loving and caring people who value you and your relationship will only need to be told once. But with narcissists, they seem to forget how they hurt you in the past. They need endless reminders and explanations. They have a very vague memory of all their wrongdoings. However, they're very quick to pull out their lists on your entire history of wrongdoings. Let's remember that saying sorry means nothing if the other person doesn't stop doing what they said they were sorry for. So a simple apology is never simple with these people. In fact, it becomes one of the most confusing, irritating, frustrating, and crazy-making episodes ever. If a narcissist expects you to trust them after they've just said they're sorry without making amends, or to give them the benefit of the doubt, here's my issue with that one. If you didn't give me any reason to doubt you in the first place, you wouldn't be asking me to offer you the benefit of the doubt. Another red flag to look out for is an entitlement and an expectation of your forgiveness. But forgiveness and rebuilding trust takes time, and it is not up to the person who's done the wrong thing by you to demand that you trust them and you forgive them without demonstrating that they've heard you and understand why it's caused you pain. Most loving people will be more than okay for you to take your time to process your feelings of hurt or anger or disappointment. They'll be patient with you because it's important to them to prove to you that they truly are sorry and that your feelings do matter to them. But this scenario will never occur with a pathological narcissist. They'll be offended if you don't just get over it. Or another common tactic is, of course, to play the victim. So you end up feeling sorry because now you've hurt their feelings by not accepting their shallow apology. So do yourself a favor and realize they don't lose sleep over whether they've hurt anyone. They're more likely to lose sleep over whether they've been caught, and they're also likely to be losing sleep because they're scheming on how they can get away with repeating whatever they've done again and again. By getting away with things, that makes them feel superior to you. By seeing how easily fooled you are with their crocodile tears and how quickly they can evade from taking any responsibility for their wrongdoing, they smugly feel proud of their cunningness. They get a thrill out of playing all these mind games and torturing you emotionally. If you're doing your head in a decade later about all of this, still wondering whether they are sorry now, rest assured they've moved on and are playing these very same games with someone else who actually thinks that a simple apology, a genuine "I'm sorry," is meant to be this hard. It's not about reaching a peaceful resolution, not about ensuring a mutually respectful ending. No, that's what normal people strive for. You still wanting or desperately needing an apology just validates that they have power over you, your emotions, your peace of mind. It means that they can still control your life and they get to choose whether you move on with your life or not. So do not expect an apology. And if you're around them and you're demanding an apology, remember that this is validation that they are superior to you. You needing something from them, whether it's closure, an apology, or acknowledgement of some sort, whatever your need is, basically tells them what they're going to intentionally withhold from you to ensure that you will never have peace of mind, and they get to control that. So stop wondering, stop waiting, give yourself closure, make a decision based on what you saw demonstrated time and time again, a lack of genuine care, a complete void of sincerity. Accept that some people will never see your perspective, nor do they want to. They are not motivated by the same things as you and I. To be truly sorry, you'd see their words and actions match. Your tension would be alleviated. They'd make an effort to restore your trust and rebuild intimacy in your relationship. Saying "I'm sorry" and actually meaning it are two different things. And sincerity is something that's really difficult to fake. I mean, some psychopaths may be really good at it, but it's difficult to convince those of us who are very familiar with their Academy Award winning performances when we've seen these chameleons on stage a few times. And their grand gifts or offers of money, their empty promises or painting fantasy future scenarios, that can never substitute the feelings, the emotions behind a real "I'm sorry." And we've all held grudges and withheld saying sorry, but we generally can't maintain that for too long, because knowing that someone we care for is hurting or is upset and is waiting for an apology becomes quite disturbing to us. So holding a grudge intentionally or withholding an apology or not giving someone closure is too painful for most of us to maintain. Using someone's feelings of hurt and vulnerability as a tool to intentionally elicit ongoing suffering is plain evil. It's normal for all of us to make mistakes. Nobody is faultless or perfect. We are perfectly imperfect. And I think most of us don't have an issue recognizing that. And a big part of our ability to mature into adulthood depends on our ability to recognize that we are at fault and that we can humbly say, "I'm sorry," and initiate making amends. These are the marks of maturity, love, and wisdom. Learning from our mistakes is part of growth. And this is why you'll notice pathological narcissists and psychopaths never seem to grow, because empathy doesn't motivate them, only power and control. So I hope I've offered you some closure and clarity in this particular video. And let me end with this brilliant quote that really helped me, and that is, life becomes easier when you learn to accept the apology that you never got. Please don't make your happiness, your peace of mind, your ability to move on their apology. And I know it sounds ridiculous for me to even say, stop expecting an apology. But remember that we're not dealing with normal. We're trying to cope with abnormal. You probably have every right to get validation of the psychological trauma, neglect, disrespect, and abuse that you endured in this relationship. The apology that you deserve is probably not even for a single incident, but a string of occurrences. So it's difficult not to expect someone to say that they're sorry when you absolutely deserve an apology. One of the reasons why it's so hard for us to let go of expecting an apology is because there are certain expectations that we do have of people in our lives. For example, we expect a mother to behave lovingly and to be nurturing. We expect a husband or wife to be loyal and honest. And of course, we have higher expectations of a best friend as opposed to an acquaintance. So we may feel deeply hurt because they haven't met our expectations, and we're painfully disappointed. And with narcissists, it happens again and again. And after a while, it becomes more about feeling disappointed with ourselves. We feel like fools for believing that we can trust them with their apology. So let me offer you a tip here. Lower your expectations with people who haven't demonstrated that they are trustworthy or that they genuinely care about you. We often give them too much credit or too soon. They put on such a good show of how caring, devoted, and reliable they are, but it's all an act. So adjust your expectations accordingly and save yourself the heartache. Becoming more aware of the expectations that we may have about certain people in our life can offer us some insight and relief, because we seem to have expectations of certain roles. I mean, we don't expect to be abused by our father or our sister, but these expectations, especially when it comes to people that we can see demonstrate criteria for narcissistic personality disorder or psychopathic behaviors, these expectations are ridiculous and they're dangerous. Realize that not everyone wants to be close with you. Some people would rather just control you. And if that means intentionally withholding an apology, or not acknowledging how they've hurt you, or pretend that they don't know what they've done, then so be it. And when I put it in this context, I think you can see how you still needing an apology allows them to still have control over your life. One of the challenges on our healing journey is learning to make peace within ourselves, irrespective of anyone's acknowledgement of fault. And that is no easy task. If an abuser eventually, one day, may choose to somehow suggest that they perhaps were to blame, then you'll still be at peace and you'll be indifferent to whatever happens or not. And that is taking your power back from the pain and the hurt and the trauma that all of us experienced in these very dysfunctional relationships. The reality is that, unfortunately, most of us will never get an apology or validation of the hell that we endured. So discern for yourself whether the pain of holding on and waiting for an apology, or waiting for them to change and suddenly be accountable. Notice whether this pain of holding on to this false hope is actually greater than the pain of letting go. Process your hurt, your disappointment and pain, but do not allow the perpetrator who abused you the option of deciding whether they'll validate that what they did was wrong. You no longer waiting for their apology means that you have decided that yes, indeed, wrong was done to you. You were victimized, but you will no longer remain a victim. So don't make your healing, your peace of mind, and your ability to move on with your life dependent on their apology.